Now, folks, if I could have your attention 1 more minute, please. Okay, so
Everybody got one, but
meetings are relatively informal. So what the chairman has said we'll do for this, for the agenda item on right to work is you can speak under public comment, but you don't need to. The board is going to consider moving that to the front of the agenda. So it's the first agenda item to accommodate all the people that are here tonight. So you will have a chance to either speak under public comment right at the beginning, or you will have a chance when we talk about the item. So you'll have two opportunities there. Speak once, but you'll have two opportunities. So you handle it whichever way you prefer. If you have to leave, you can speak under public comment. If you want to wait to hear the issue, you might want to wait and just speak at that point in time. Okay? The chairman will kind of guide you through that. Did I miss anybody who needs
support.
a card?
Please.
Got one? If you have cards to turn in, raise your hand.
See, we get to do this after I cook something that was reasonable
I
tonight.
think what'd you make?
Spanish rice.
So,
I love Spanish rice.
as a courtesy, if you have signs and things like that, we ask that you keep them in front of you or move them to the side of the room so that you're not
okay?
blocking anybody's view when the issue is being discussed. So please be courteous for what item, sir, will it be moved to what item number? Well, it's going to be moved up to the first item, I believe.
If we agree.
If you agree. If they agree. We don't want to get it too hot. Still on the bottom.
Thank you.
So we want to move it above the consent calendar?
Sure. That's just gonna be us.
Yeah, we might as well. If anything gets pulled, then
Yeah.
it doesn't matter.
I'm good with that.
Okay?
Yeah, it's currently on the
Yeah, but you
agenda.
can't get in without a ticket. You might be able to, but not. Only
Move it up.
here.
Moving it right after the
And I gotta tell you, I left it hanging on the hook.
I have this letter that Larry dictated.
So, I have a sink in my garage.
He'd like read into the
I have a
minutes.
sink in my garage, so we have 220 in the garage, so we move the stove. I mean, we have an air conditioner in the window. The kitchen's in the garage. Our garage has never been so clean.
This has nothing to do with it. All right. I will read that. What?
I know.
It won't hurt. It's warm in here, so. Not as warm as it is in my building most of the time, but. Call this meeting to order, please.
I got a feeling I want to look at these pictures over.
Good evening. This is the regular meeting of the Public Health and Safety Committee of the Grand Traverse County Board of Commissioners. Our first opportunities, we will have the opening ceremonies and the Pledge of Allegiance. But before we do that, I'd like a moment of brief silence in memory of Commissioner Inman's brother's sudden passing, and if we could do that, please. Thank you very much. I'm sure all of our thoughts and prayers are with him this evening. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Sam, will you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Gilman,
Here.
Henschel,
Here.
Lemkool,
Here.
Richardson,
Here.
Thomas,
Yep.
Max Bauer,
Yes.
Chairman Wheelock.
Yes, ma'am. And Commissioner Inman is excused.
Yeah, please.
The approval of the minutes of the June 1st meeting?
And Commissioner Fleece is excused, too.
Fleece is excused.
Oh, I'm sorry, Fleece.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Two of us missing.
Ross?
Motion approved.
I second Dick's motion.
All right, motion by Thomas, supported by Richardson to approve the minutes as provided of the June 1st meeting. Further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries. Okay, this is the first opportunity for public comment. After we have the first opportunity for public comment this evening, we're going to approve the agenda, and we've already discussed the likelihood, as long as no one really objects, to move item number 10, that being the discussion of the Employment Freedom to Work resolution, to directly after the approval of our printed agenda. Okay, so this is the first opportunity for public comment, and Sam, if you'd read the rules for public comment, please.
Any person shall be permitted to address a meeting of the Board of Commissioners which is required to be open to the public under the provision of the Michigan Open Meetings Act as amended. Public comment shall be carried out in accordance with the following board rules and procedures. Any person wishing to address the board shall state his or her name and address. No person shall be allowed to speak more than once on the same matter, excluding time needed to answer commissioners' questions. The chairperson shall control the amount of time each person shall be allowed to speak, which shall not exceed 3 minutes. Chairperson may, at his or her discretion, extend the amount of time any person is allowed to speak.
Having heard the rules for public comment, is there anyone wishing to speak at this time? If you'd come up to the microphone, state your name and address, please.
Yes, I'm Hank LeBate from Long Lake, 799 Minkin Drive, and I support the right to work, and I would like to just point out that there are 22 states that have right to work, and of those 22 states, in the decade from 1999 to 2009, they saw a GDP increase of 40% and a personal income increase of 50% over the other states, the other 28 states. Now, I read the Record Eagle article today with interest. I called Senator Walker's office and Representative Schmidt in the governor's office. And I can tell you that Senator Walker's office stated that he is fully supportive of right to work, and in fact, he has a bill that he's put forth. So the Record Eagle is wrong on that. And that bill is for localized right-to-work areas. Also, Representative Schmidt said that the Record Eagle has not contacted them in 3 months. That's enough. Thank you.
Anyone else at this time? Come ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. My name's Kim Schaub at 3619 North Briar, and I would just encourage all of you to listen very openly to the right to work, which is what I do support. I don't think it's, as being self-employed, I would not want to have my monies taken for union work. I've worked in union plants before and was not thrilled with having to pay union dues for the directions that the union representative wanted to go and use the funds, which were totally against what I believed and that should have been used for. And when you have the choice, we're not asking people to do away with unions, but we're asking people to have that choice, that in order to work, that they don't have to give up their principles to have a job, because the union supports things against what they believe. And so that's why I'm here, and I just ask you to really consider it. Governor Snyder, if he sees the support for the issue itself, it will then be brought to, in my opinion, would then be brought more aware to more people that their voices would also be heard. So in your group supporting this, it's not an amendment, but this idea just puts it forward so that the whole state can voice their opinion, and I think that's what's really needed, is that the whole state, not just a couple elected officials, but the whole state to be able to make that decision, and then we each get our own voice to be heard. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Matthew Scheck, 306 9th Street, Traverse City. I'm a resident. I'm here this evening to speak on behalf of Right to Work. I believe that it is an issue. I think it's long past due that we at least have an honest discussion about it. I say that. I've been a member of 2 unions in the past. I'm not anti-union. I'm pro-freedom. Freedom to work and the right to choose is paramount in my mind here. I find that the campaign, though, the right to work, the anti-campaign on it says it's right to work for less, and it makes me smile because if the people that say that would only realize that, that some of the statistics, it's not on their side. Most all statistics, like from 1960 to 2010, 8 of the top 10 states with the fastest growing disposable income were right-to-work states. You know what Michigan ranked as? The 50th. The 50th. We're last. Having a right-to-work state doesn't mean it does away with unions. It's a good thing. Right-to-work will encourage competition. It's a good thing. A union should understand that. But apparently some of them don't. When and where states do have right-to-work laws, the unions do better than they normally would without right-to-work laws. 22 right-to-work states grew faster, and that came out of the U.S. Bureau of Economic Analysis, Business Journal's May of 2011, so that's pretty current. Also, real personal...
Wrap it up, please.
Oh, sure. Real personal income from 1999 to 2009 grew twice as fast in right-to-work states, 28% as in compulsory unionism states. So I'm just asking, I say thank you, and I thank you, Commissioner Gilman, for bringing this up, to have the courage to bring it up, because I know that some of my union friends may not like to hear some of the stats that we have to sorrowfully give them. Thank you.
Thank you. Gentleman back here was, come here.
Thank you. Douglas Cunningham, 9135 Park Lane, Interlaken. I'm here to speak in opposition to the Employee Freedom to Work Act resolution. I don't feel as though something of that nature should be brought forth from the county commission that represents all the public. The real issue in the right to work battle is collective bargaining power. Amidst the conflicting arguments is a hidden, basic issue of union security and its ultimate relationship to collective bargaining. The case for right to work is non-existent. Workers are already well protected from the alleged abuses. What is more, right to work laws, which are designed to weaken and destroy unions, do not, in the long run, benefit employers or society. Collective bargaining is not an impediment to economic growth and progress. It is, as the National Labor Relations Act recognizes, an indispensable and beneficial aspect to our democratic society. Those who seek to destroy collective bargaining through right-to-work laws are undermining, not strengthening, the U.S. economic system and society. Most supporters as well as opponents seem to agree that right-to-work laws are designed with one intention in mind: the weakening, if not total destruction, of the labor movement in collective bargaining. If there is so much agreement on this point, why has the right to work movement continued to conceal its true purpose? Why continue with the big lie? The answer is simple. There is no majority in the U.S. favoring the destruction of labor unions. Quite the contrary, most Americans firmly believe that the labor movement is necessary to counterbalance the political and economic power of the business community. Americans know that unions, not business groups, are the only institutions devoted to advancing and protecting the vital interests of working people. We all belong to various organizations. They all require us to collect, they all require dues in most instances, and I oppose any sort of resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Got one coming up back.
Good evening. My name is Paul Napati. I live at 802 Fern Street, Traverse City. And I am in favor of the right to work. As a former UAW member in Flint years ago, also as a committee man, Chevrolet Motor Division. And starting in 1968, I was the organizer, one of the organizers of the Retail Clerks International Union here in Traverse City for companies such as, at that time, Fochman Motor Company and Northern Auto Parts. And so I'm definitely not a non-union, anti-union person, but I'm certainly a pro-job and pro-opportunity person. And other than that, I just believe that everyone simply should have the choice of joining or not. And I don't believe that's going to hurt union membership at all. It's just going to be making it what I would consider fair for everybody, and certainly a better climate for companies in Michigan, because we're not looking too good. Thank you.
Thank you. Turn to front.
Hi, my name is David Grams. I live in Traverse City, next to College 1735, East Front Street. 2 points. My main point today is I think you guys are off base, or at least Commissioner Gilman is, and not yet, right? Well, I suppose that it's not coincidental that I mentioned that, because as I read over your proposal and looked at your webpage, I really got the impression of somebody who has larger aspirations and really has a political agenda that goes beyond what I feel is the purview of what the issues that should be dealt with at the county level. And I would encourage you to not deal with this issue, because I don't think it's appropriate. And the final point I would make is simply, you can organize people on both sides of the issue to come up and represent their opinion, and that doesn't necessarily represent an accurate survey of the public. Having sat behind that desk as a Parks and Rec commissioner on some contentious issues, I know that things can be overemphasized based on who's able to get people out to vote. But I wanted to make a final point, and that is if there's going to be a bunch of people coming up here claiming that states that have right to work, where union membership is optional, are showing a larger increase in salaries and disposable incomes, I would like to point out that that is much different than having a larger salary. All the research and data I've seen shows that states that are not right to work, strong union states, have much higher average salaries for the general working populace. So I think there's an important distinction there. Again, I really don't think this is an issue you should be dealing with, but I wanted to make that point. Thank you for your time.
Diana Catola, 6232 Chelsea Lane. I'm in opposition to right to work. I think it's ironic when 14% of the population in the workforce is represented by unions, which means 86% are not represented by unions. And for anybody who doesn't want to pay union dues, there ought to be plenty of opportunities to find a non-union job. Basically what happens is when people come to union shops, they want the benefits that the unions have afforded them, but they don't want to have to share the pain of organizing, collectively bargaining, and representing other workers. I encourage you to oppose this resolution.
Sir. Here in the red.
Good evening. John Schaub, 3619 North Briar, Traverse City. I'm in favor of the right to work. As a young man, I worked in a union. I've also been in management side in union shops. I have 5 children, 3 of whom are teachers, 2 in Michigan, 1 in New York. All of them belong to unions. I guess my comment is what this boils down to is what right does a citizen of this country have to choose whether or not to belong to a union? And the comment that was just made that they can find another job doesn't sound American to me. If they want to work anywhere in this country, they should be allowed to work anywhere without being required to join a union. If they want to, that's fine. I guess I don't understand why the unions are afraid of this. If you're taking care of your people, they'll want to belong to a union. Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Bob Donick. I reside at 1708 Comanche Street, within the city limits of Traverse City. I speak to you today in regards to the resolution before you in reference to right to work or freedom to work, depending on what you want to call it. I speak to you today as a retired county employee, a proud union member, and a business agent for Teamsters Local 214. As most of you are well aware of, our local represents the majority of the unionized employees in the county, as well as the majority of the city of Traverse City workers. I implore you to vote down this ill-conceived and not needed resolution. Unions are not forced upon workers. Workers can vote in and vote out unions. This is democracy at work, where the majority rules. People can belong to the union or choose not to. However, those who choose not to do pay a service fee for the administration and enforcement of the collective bargaining agreements. Under the right to work law, workers would not have to join the union, but would be entitled to the full benefits of a union contract. I quote Martin Luther King Jr., "We must guard against being fooled by false slogans as right to work. It provides no rights. It provides no works. Its purpose is to destroy labor unions and the freedom of collective bargaining." I truly believe that we as a union and our local have had a good working relationship with the county board. Please do not spoil this by passing this resolution. Right to work laws are a virtual conspiracy of the crafty, the ignorant, or the misguided who subvert commerce peace, exploit people's need to work, and engulf the community with industrial irresponsibility. Right to work laws do not create jobs. They only victimize the worker and make his organization ineffective.
You can wrap it up, Bob.
Pardon me?
If you could wrap it up, please. We're getting to your 3 minutes.
3 minutes, correct? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Weller. I end with a quote from John F. Kennedy. "Those who would destroy or further limit the right of organized labor, those who cripple collective bargaining or prevent organization of the unorganized, do a disservice to the cause of democracy. The American labor movement has consistently demonstrated its devotion to the public interest. It is and has been good for all Americans." Thank you.
Anyone else at this time? Yes, sir. That's fine. And we will take comment as we undertake this discussion, too.
Mr. Chairman and commission members alike, I want to thank you for this opportunity for the fair debate over right to work.
Your name and address, please.
My name is Sam Houston, 1305 I-75 Business Loop, Grayling, Michigan. I am not a Grand Traverse County resident. However, this resolution that's being proposed to all of you here in this room has bigger intentions. They intend to basically, county by county, try and institute this with the intent of taking it to a state ballot initiative. I'm not going to spend much time on talking because I have it with me that I will pass out to all of you a study that was done about how right to work and economic development within the state do not go, do not benefit the state. This is an older study that was done in 2001, but there are several professors of finance, of economics, that participated in this study. I encourage you to take the time and read it diligently and consider the facts. I also encourage you to understand, and if you don't understand, do some research on the labor laws of the National Labor Relations Board and understand that most unions are pro-jobs. Understand that there is fair and equitable choice. If a company is going to be represented, there has to be a vote to the National Labor Relations Board, of which a board agent comes and conducts the election. From there, at some point, if there is a majority of those employees sometime down the road have changed their mind, they can also conduct a vote to decertify. I want that put in the record. It should be understood that there is a choice. They are not forced to do anything they don't want to. It is done on the majority of the employees. And so the National Labor Relations Board is very clear on what the law is when it comes to representation. With that, I will close and provide you with this study. Thank you.
Next, anyone else at this time? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Just a second. And if anyone has spoken or wishes to speak tonight, if you'll get one of the cards on the table and put in your name and address, and make sure that the clerk receives that, please, so we can document who spoke. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Mary McGee Cullen, 3162 English Woods Drive, Traverse City.
Go ahead.
I am the current president of the Traverse City Education Association, which is the local teachers union. I just flew back today from spending 7 days with approximately 9,000 delegates from across the country, all 50 states represented. We can find, as an educator and as many of these well-educated people, you can find research for anything you want to prove. The Right to Work has a very catchy title because people think, of course you have the right to work. Everyone has a right to work. But it is an underlying meaning. Just like Howard Walker's wife is a teacher. He's got to be pro-education. He has to be pro-collective bargaining. That is the polar opposite of what he stands for. Governor Snyder will do this anyway. He has proven that in the last week. He does not need your stamp of approval on this resolution to move forward. I urge you to think about the people in the audience and people at home, if this is televised. How many of you enjoy sick days or a 5-day work week or child labor laws? If you do, you can thank a union member.
Senator?
I oppose the resolution regarding the right to work, and I encourage you to do the same and hopefully close debate on this tonight. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Cheryl Langdon, 2138 Kiwani Court, Traverse City. I am a member, officer, and a business agent for Local 214. Under Michigan law, unions are elected and decertified by a majority vote. in the same way that politicians are elected in this country. Every member of a bargaining unit has the legal right already to choose to be a member or a non-member, regardless of whether they choose to join or not to join. The union has the legal obligation to represent every single person in that bargaining unit. It costs the same to represent a member as it does to represent a non-member. Unions are a business like any other business. We have offices, staffs, accountants, and lawyers, all of which cost money. We have rent, utilities, postage, phone, and gas bills. The representation services we provide are not free. Therefore, we must ask all of the employees in a given group, whether members or not, to share in the cost of the services provided to that group, which is only fair. Citizens who do not agree with a tax or a millage or a bond that is voted for by the majority of the citizenry do not have the option of refusing to pay the tax because they disagree with it. Why are we held to a different standard? This is not a resolution meant to provide non-members with extra money for their families. The intent of this resolution is to cripple unions, to make unions unable to pay their bills, and to go out of business, and ultimately to silence the voice of the American worker. The Right to Work movement is not new. It is a very well-funded organization backed by wealthy businessmen and corporations whose sole intent is to bust unions, to take away the workers' voice, and to give employers free rein. Taking away a union's ability to represent and defend its members will do nothing to increase jobs or improve the economy. All it will accomplish is to erode and eliminate more good jobs, further escalate the housing crisis, and force the hardworking citizens of this state into further economic distress. I implore you to see this resolution for what it is, a union-busting attempt, and to vote against it. Thank you.
Anyone else at this time? Yes, sir, in the back.
My name is John Scordato. I'm at 422 East State Street. I was the past president, Traverse City Education Association. I started my career out as a Teamster on a loading dock in New Jersey. I am a proud union member. My father was a proud union member, as my grandfather was a longshoreman on the piers in New York. Unions brought you 40-hour work week, child care, health benefits. Now you're looking to get involved in something at the county where you shouldn't be. We had baseball, then we had Rotary, and now all of a sudden on the county level, we're going after right to work, which is not right to work. It is not the right to work. It is the willful destruction, excuse me, of the American labor movement. The lady that was here before me spoke the truth. Whether you're a union member or a non-union member in a union shop, we have to represent you. We have to represent you the same way as a dues-paying member. To my knowledge, the county has never had difficult times, always managed to work out with its labor unions. Now all of a sudden, because we have someone who wants his 15 minutes of fame and join the national lampooning of unions, we're going to be put this right here up front with the county, and the county's going to be put in a position where they're going to have to make a statement. I urge you, say no. It doesn't belong here. Let the state deal with it. Let the people on the union levels with the state deal with it. Keep it out of county. Fix our roads. Fix the septage plant. Stay out of this. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Ellis Wood. I'm a 30-year member of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters. I'm here to stand in opposition of the Employee Freedom to Work Act resolution. I just would like to make one thought without being redundant as to everybody else's comments. I don't think anybody in this room works for free. Labor unions are no different. I think under the Beck Law and the National Labor Relations Act that anyone that doesn't want to be a member of the union can opt out and choose not to do so. If you don't want to be a member, that's your choice at any time. You have that right under federal labor law. But to pound on unions and working families and say that it's the union's fault that this economy or anything else is in the condition it is crazy in my mind. I'll leave my comment with that. If you don't want to join the union, you don't have to. And just to comment on the several people that preceded me to say they're in opposition of the union, don't feel they have to join, I didn't hear any of them say that they gave any of those benefits back that the union sat there for years and fought for them and their families for. Thank you for your time.
In the back.
John Fusick, 678 Peninsula Trail. I'm in support of the Right to Work Act. I'd like you to consider it. The union employees here, I understand completely. I have a father that was a Union 2 bricklayer. I was AFL-CIO firefighter for 10 years. I understand all your issues. When it comes to public employees, the weight of what you are now, the carrying capacity of the economics can't carry you the way it is now. You might want to get used to that. So that's my commentary. The community can't support the bloated part of the government employees that are union members. And I don't know of a teacher that isn't. Thank you very much.
All right, is there anyone else at this point? Seeing none, I'm going to bring it back to the board. Our next order, we have the special order of business, or no, let's do the approval of the agenda with the amendment of bringing item number 10 under new business, the Employee Freedom of Work Act resolution supported or presented by Commissioner Gilman. That will be the first order of business after we approve the agenda.
We approve the agenda.
Support. Motion by Gilman, supported by Limcool, to approve the agenda with the change of moving item 10 of new business up to immediately following the approval of the agenda. Chris?
Mr. Chairman, we have two people who are going to do a special presentation, and I'm just reluctant. I would prefer to move Commissioner Gilman's Employee Freedom to Work Act resolution after the special order of business.
That's fine with me. I can withdraw.
Okay, so if the maker and second are good, we will move that item to immediately following the Senior Center fundraising presentation. If everyone's in agreement to that and no further discussion. All those in favor of approving the agenda with the item number 10 directly after the Senior Center fundraising, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries. Special order of business, Senior Center fundraising presentation. Good evening.
Hello.
Good evening.
Kim Schmitz.
I'm Russ Knopp, and I live at 2168 Twin Eagles in Traverse City. And Kim and I are here to briefly update the commissioners on the status of the Senior Center, Friends of the Senior Center. Kim and I belong to a group known as the Friends of the Senior Center. We've been meeting and working on the progress for a little over 3 years. Our goal is to, as a group of private citizens, is to raise money to build a new senior center. Like I said, we are a group of private citizens. We've been meeting for a little over 3 years. We've worked closely with the Community Foundation and have accepted their counsel along the way so that we're doing things in the appropriate manner. We've also, at the same time, created a fund for the new senior center at the Community Foundation. In the process for fundraising, there's a couple of steps that have to be taken. The first was to do an assessment of the community and ask seniors who live in the county what they would like from a senior center. We did apply for a grant and received funds to do that. That survey was completed last year with a good representation of the community or of the county being represented and their needs for a new community or new senior center, excuse me. The second step, and we did apply for a grant and received funds for a feasibility study, and that is currently in place right now. The feasibility study is to determine whether there are private funds available to support a new senior center in the community. We did receive a grant, and that's it. Like I said, that's in process right now. Interviews are being taken or being given right now with citizens in the county who may be interested in funding the new senior center. And at this point, we don't have any answers. Those interviews will go on through the next 6 months, and then we'll be able to determine where the level of support is from the private community to develop a new senior center. And we just wanted to give you that update tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming.
Okay, thanks.
Now they're going to miss all the fun.
Okay, our next order of business is the Employee Freedom to Act resolution presented by Commissioner Gilman. Jason, you have the floor.
Good evening, everybody, and I thank you all for being here. This is no agenda of mine. I'm not using this to launch myself in any particular direction politically. In fact, it's entirely possible that the next term finds me back doing what I do best, and that's selling cameras. But this is something that I feel is right, and I did prepare a statement so that I can present it a little bit more directly. You know, Independence Day was only 2 days ago. You know, it's a celebration, a declaration that this country would not bow any longer to a king whose interests ran contrary and were not those of the colonies. How fitting that at this time we have an opportunity to see another Declaration of Independence. This last Thursday, a coalition of union workers, both current and former, along with other supporters, stood before news cameras and microphones throughout the state and declared that they too shall be free to pursue their craft and their trades, free with the ability to join or create a representative union, yet not be bound to do so or pay for that effort if the union does not represent their best interest, without fear of losing their jobs. It is the freedom that was crafted by our nation's founders, an individual's right to choose, to express a disinterest in collective acts that are disagreeable, or to join those which serve best. It is the exercise of choice, independence, freedom, and opportunity to bring about a new entrepreneurial element to those who would represent the state's workers. It's also about competition and jobs. While the moral aspect of the legislation means that a third party cannot keep a worker away from a job for lack of payment to an agency that may not represent that worker either marginally or in whole, the business aspect is also quite appealing. You know, business placement has become more competitive in this country. Michigan has lost opportunities to other states because they've offered a right-to-work environment. Companies such as Volkswagen have demonstrated with their feet that forced unionization in Michigan was not as desirable as a state like Virginia for its U.S. headquarters, which moved there in 2007. And an expansion later on in Tennessee, which is also a right-to-work state. Boeing itself, having made the news recently because of its desire to expand in a right-to-work environment, South Carolina. Right-to-work states fare better in these competitive times. Growth is higher, household income is higher, where jobs are more plentiful. Upward pressure on wages must happen for an employer's ability to keep those best employees. Employers must be more competitive in hiring. Union membership in right-to-work states is very strong. As much as some might consider this a union-busting measure, the need for negotiators can be as strong or stronger where there are more jobs to fill. The top 5 creating job states in the last decade, Texas, Florida, Arizona, Virginia, and Nevada, all right-to-work states. the bottom 5 states in that category: California, Indiana, Illinois, Ohio, and Michigan being dead last, all forced unionization states. This data is verifiable through the government website, Bureau of Labor Statistics, U.S. Department of Labor. Over the last decade, real personal income has grown twice as fast in right-to-work states. In right-to-work states, income growth 28.3% on the average. In forced unionism states, only 14%. This data is also verifiable. And what about the families? Those who have children seeking other employment opportunities in other states would be less inclined to do so. The disintegration of family units due to welfare, lack of work, and money issues would be lessened, as demonstrated by a study of U.S. Administration and Children and Families, also U.S. Census data. Welfare recipients per 1,000 residents, this is a 2009 average. In right-to-work states, there were 7.6 per 1,000 residents. In forced unionism states, there were 17.3 per 1,000 residents. This is not or should not be a partisan issue, and unfortunately it's been made one. All of our workforce would prosper through right-to-work legislation and the associated benefits of more jobs, through strengthened families and a renewed Michigan. And for the time being, I'll let anybody else speak on
Rob? Mr. Chairman, in the interest of separating the discussion, I would move that this board affirm that this is the appropriate venue for the resolution regarding right to work.
Support.
The motion is that this board affirm that this is the appropriate venue for this resolution. And I just did that because I wanted to separate the discussion as to the appropriateness from the actual issue. I've only been a commissioner for 6 months, and I'd like to have a discussion as to whether this is appropriate in this venue.
Ross?
It's not. It's under no way, shape, or form anything that we have anything to do with. This seems to be what Jason Gilman likes to do, waste everybody's time revisiting issues that we've already visited or visiting issues that don't really concern us. Quite frankly, we met on Friday, June 24th, the County Commission did, for coffee with Representative Schmidt and Senator Walker. Now, Jason, you weren't at that meeting, but Commissioner Henschel was, and Commissioner asked the two gentlemen if they were pursuing right to work or if right to work was being pursued in Lansing, which is obviously the appropriate place for right to work, because it's state legislation. It's certainly not something the county decides. And the newspaper reported this morning that those two individuals said it wasn't part of their priorities. Well, I was at that meeting, and I can tell you that you could almost see the fear in their eyes. They said, "Oh, no, we don't think it's a good idea to go there." They said, "You could win the battle but lose the war." Senator Walker said, "Well, we could pursue that, but if we did," he said, "it would suck all the oxygen out of the room for the next year. We're just afraid we wouldn't be able to get anything else done." So it was very clear to me that they were not interested in pursuing right to work. My feeling is, if you want to pursue right to work, and if you want to pursue right to work, then call up your representative, call up your senator, call up the governor and say, "Hey, let's get on it." Go down there and lobby in Lansing, but not here. Dick?
Well, I know that in the past, there's several times we have passed resolutions of support for different items. One of them was when the ATV ordinance. We sent a resolution down for that, and it got passed. However, this one I'm a little concerned about because for a different reason, whether this is the proper place. And my question was, should it be here? Because this meeting tonight is for public safety and health concerns, and this has nothing to do with it. I ran a business for 35 years, and I didn't, so I'm not a union man. But on the other hand, the unions have done an awful lot in this country, and as I stand right now, I I don't think I would want to vote either way. I just don't think it's our business.
Jason?
Well, first off, the Commissioner Richardson insists on attacking me and calling the things that I have an interest in the name of my constituents, a waste of time. Just remember, they're going to be your constituents potentially the next time around, the next time elections happen. You might be wise to remember that. As far as the public health and safety question, the only reason I brought it to this board for the public health and safety is because we are so close to the Independence Day, and there really is an independence and a freedom issue that is involved here. Now, as far as whether or not it's relevant to bring before a county board, how close can the people be to the people making the decisions? How much access do you have? All you folks here have a lot of access to me. You can call me. My phone is not unlisted. It is in the phone book. And I get the calls, and I've gotten a lot of calls of support today. I've gotten emails of support. I've gotten a couple against, you know. But this is an appropriate place, I think. I think it's an appropriate place because it's a place where we can have these discussions. Call them mini town halls. This place is packed. This is beautiful. This is America. And no, I'll tell you, I'm not going to be intimidated by someone's fear of having the air sucked out of Lansing or the statement that that is going to happen if something like this is produced by this board. I think that's uncalled for and inappropriate.
I didn't say it. Senator Walker said it. I didn't say it.
Just as a point of order in the issue of whether or not it's appropriate for this committee, while we still maintain the names of our committees, Public Health and Safety and Resource Management, we made a decision when we changed to the full board being committees, that any item could go to any committee. And so while it didn't, historically, it would have been in an appropriate place under our new system, it is appropriate to be considered here. You still have the decision of whether or not it's an issue you want to consider. But I believe it's fine for this agenda. There's no issue with that.
Okay. Rob?
I guess the reason I wanted to separate this issue is in our receiving files, every so often, probably several times, I've seen similar resolutions about different issues from different county commissions. It seems to be what commissioners do around Michigan about different issues. And I guess if it's not, why are we getting them from downstate, from across the state, different resolutions like this, encouraging us in some way that their board as a whole or as a majority decided we want to push this issue?
Dennis?
Well, I just point out that that is true. It happens all the time. It's always happened since long before I was here, so years and years and years. In the past, this county board has generally received and filed them, but not taken any action on them. So it's been kind of a informal policy of past boards that they didn't really involve themselves in those, even though some counties chose to. This board may choose to take a different path, but that's the reason that they're there. Some counties do them regularly, and you see the same counties every month with new resolutions, and then you never see some from some counties who just don't take that kind of action. But it's really your choice.
Yeah, I think it's rather interesting that we have this discussion because we have an association that we belong to, and this is where it belongs. Michigan Association of Counties is our lobbying group for our county and also for all the issues that we bring forward. I think it's an opportunity for us to be able to present this to that county, that organization, for us to make this presentation to our governor and our senators and our representatives. I'm not sure that's where I want to go at this time. I think it's an issue that needs to be discussed, it needs to be brought forward, but I think it needs to be gone before our lobbying group, which is the Michigan Association of Counties. And I think that's where this should start, that process to be able to determine whether or not they feel that it's an issue that should be brought before us and then bring it back to us. So, I think we need to bring it to them, to ask them to sit down and have this discussion to determine before we start going to our governor and before we start going to our representatives. Because I think we're leapfrogging an organization that has been very beneficial for our community and for the county commissioners as a whole.
Well, if I could make a couple comments, I guess. First, in regard to Michigan Association of Counties being our lobby group, I understand that, but at the same time, if we do not tell them what issues we want them to lobby, we can't expect them to represent us either. I've been here a long time. Other than Dickie here, I've been here longer than anyone else in the room, but I have a really tough time when we try to take political positions on issues that we have no control over. And, I remember a few years ago when the City Commission of the City of Traverse City passed a resolution opposing to the Iraq War. Why are you even having this discussion? And I'm truly not sure why we're having this discussion. I'm happy to listen to everyone. I'm happy to read all of the material that's distributed to me, and then I will make contact with my representative and my senator, because those are the people that have the position to make the decision. I don't have it. It's not something that I believe we as a county board should weigh in on. I, as a citizen, should represent myself, and I'll take all of the information that anyone wants to give me to help me make that decision. But I truly do not believe that this is a decision that this county board should weigh in on collectively as a group. Dick?
Well, I'll agree with everything you say, but I do want to include that maybe by the time I get all this paperwork read, I could make a decision on it, but I don't know that much about it yet to make something that's going to be stuck in the history. I'm just not ready to vote.
Rob?
Well, just remind you, this motion on the floor is just to affirm as this board whether this is an appropriate venue, and after that, anything can happen. If this board actually has no power, it doesn't belong here, it's a non-issue, why are all these people here? It's what's in the back of my, if this was empty and we heard the crickets, like we do most evenings, then, it would indicate to me that this doesn't belong here. I mean, it doesn't really matter what we say, what we think. Am I reading this wrong? Apparently it matters what we think.
It does matter what we think.
Okay.
It does matter what we think, and it matters what these people think, and these people, and these people. And I think that, again, I have to reiterate, we have limited contact. I mean, you can go to talk to Howard or Wayne, or I can go and I talk to Howard or Wayne. I believe most of us have their private cell numbers, and we can make that contact. It's a lot easier, but it doesn't have the effect of people showing up and actually making their best case. So I think it is appropriate. This is a great place to have these discussions. And frankly, the one thing that somebody said was right is, trying to do this to to snowball it into the next counties. Yes, I am trying to get it to snowball into the next counties, because it's something that I, as a person who has ideas, and was elected for those ideas, I believe that we can effect change by influencing our policymakers a little bit at a time. Now, again, this is a chance for the people to have a voice. It's also a chance for us as a board to have a voice and actually affect change a little bit more than whether or not a pothole is filled. Take it.
Just a point of order, if we decide to vote this motion down,
Then we're done.
if we decide to, where does that leave the people in the audience as to whether or not, when and how they could make it their points of issue? Because we've got a lot of cards here, people who wanted to make an issue. So I guess that, I'm just concerned about...
After we vote on this motion, I think we should give them the opportunity to speak.
I mean, is that what the process would be?
Right, I would think
Or now.
one way or the other, we'll vote on this motion.
Okay.
We will still take public
Good,
comment,
okay.
under public comment, for this issue, we need to determine first whether this is the appropriate venue to have this discussion. Because if it is, then we go ahead and we take all the public comment that we can get in regard to that, toward the direction that we might make a motion on the resolution that was in your packet. Now, should we determine this is not the appropriate venue, we will still take public comment in regard to this issue, so as that each of us is better educated in regard to the issue as to what our community supports or doesn't support as we move forward individually to try to speak with our representatives. At least that would be my opinion. Bob, does that sound appropriate to you?
I agree with that, yeah.
Okay.
I would hope that new public comment would be something new than.
Right.
It will.
All right, we have a motion on the floor to approve this discussion, and Sam will read or affirm that this.
To affirm if this is the appropriate venue to approve the resolution.
Okay.
That was his motion.
So everyone understands the motion? Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Henschel.
Yes.
Lemkool.
Yes.
Richardson.
No.
Thomas.
No.
Maxbauer.
Yes.
Gilman.
Yes.
Chairman Wheelock.
No.
4-3.
4-3, we will take the discussion. Is there anyone in the public wishing to make comment at this time?
We have
I'll tell you what.
cards. We have
Right,
cards in order.
let's have Commissioner Gilman read the resolution as it was drafted, because I'm sure that everyone hasn't had opportunity to read that. So if he could read this resolution, and then Sam will call the cards, and we'll take the comments in the order that she calls the cards, if we could, please.
Whereas we agree with President John F. Kennedy's executive order regarding federal employees that all persons should have the right freely and without fear of penalty to form, join, or assist a labor organization and of equal importance, or to refrain from such activity. Whereas to ensure individual freedom of choice, we believe that no person should be compelled as a condition of employment to, 1, refrain from voluntary membership or financial support of a labor organization, or 2, become or remain a member of a labor organization, or 3, pay any dues, fees, or assessments to a labor organization. Whereas we believe that the freedom to choose regarding union membership or financial support is a civil right, and that job discrimination on the basis of union membership or non-membership or financial support or non-support should be prohibited by law. Whereas in addition to being a matter of individual freedom and civil rights, those states that have enacted laws prohibiting the threat of being discriminated against or fired based on union affiliation have experienced dramatically higher job creation and income growth, a benefit Michigan can no longer afford to do without. Whereas over the last decade, Michigan suffered the biggest loss of jobs of any state in the nation, while the top 5 states for the creation of new private sector jobs over that same time were all states that protect employees' individual freedom of choice regarding union membership and financial support. Whereas, according to the U.S. Census Bureau, 2/3 of the states which guarantee employees individual freedom to choose regarding union membership and support have higher per capita income than do the citizens of Michigan. Whereas over the last half-century, 8 of the top 10 states with the highest average annual growth in income were such voluntary unionism states, while Michigan ranked 50th among the states. Whereas, when adjusted for taxes and the cost of living, families in voluntary unionism states have been found to have over $2,000 more disposable income each year than in states such as Michigan, where employees face the threat of being discriminated against and fired if they choose not to join or financially support a labor organization. Whereas we conclude that in addition to protecting our citizens' individual freedom and civil rights, passage of a state law guaranteeing voluntary unionism and prohibiting job discrimination based on union affiliation will also dramatically improve Michigan's ability to attract and create new jobs and thus stimulate our economy. Therefore, be it resolved that the Grand Traverse County Board of Commissioners hereby calls on Governor Rick Snyder and the legislature and specifically Senator Howard Walker and Representative Wayne Schmidt, to propose and enact an Employee Freedom to Work Act that will safeguard our individual freedom and civil rights by guaranteeing that all persons in Michigan have the right, freely and without fear of penalty, to form, join, or assist a labor organization, or to refrain from any such activity in order to acquire, keep, or maintain employment. Be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution shall be sent to Governor Snyder, Senator Walker, and Representative Schmidt, and also to the boards of county commissioners of the other counties of the state, who we urge to join us in calling for the enactment of an Employee Freedom to Work Act for the people of Michigan.
Having heard the resolution, is there anyone in the audience wishing to make comment at this time?
Do you want us to go through these?
Yeah, I'm going to have, let's go ahead and call them by order. That'll be easier. That way we can identify who it is.
Randy Bishop? Randy Bishop?
Randy Bishop, 2009 Timber Lane Drive, Traverse City. I'm in the process of moving to Torch Lake Township. In 1965, Michigan was the 9th richest state in our country. December 13th, a year later, my dad died, driving home from a UAW job at Fisher Body, Pontiac. I was 8 years old. 1976, I graduated high school. 1976 summer, I was a UAW member at the Dodge Truck, Warren, Michigan. 2005, I sold our business and bought a semi-truck and wanted to see this country. And in traveling for 3 years, putting 300,000 miles on that semi-truck, I saw signs. I put my son through college at Western Michigan. When he graduated with the degree that I paid for, he couldn't find work in Michigan. He and my daughter-in-law, who was a biology teacher from Western, had to get work in Jacksonville, Florida. Those 3 years when I was out driving a truck, I didn't get to see my son when I came home because he wasn't living in Michigan. He was living in Florida, a right-to-work state. In the last 10 years, which is the most important data we have to look at, is the data that's happened to our country in the last decade. Not from 1960, when President Kennedy made those statements, not in the 70s, not in the 80s, but the last 10 years, things have changed. I sold my semi-truck, and I ran for state senate last year, and I learned a lot of things about how laws impact people and jobs. We're not talking about wages and per capita income and all of these statistics. What we're talking about is when I was running for state senate, I had employers and people who were in charge of locating businesses and companies say they would never consider locating a company in Michigan. They told me point blank, you're overregulated, you're overtaxed, and your forced unionization laws force unionization causes companies to relocate in right-to-work states. The Willow Run plant was empty, and Boeing was considering locating there. But they chose South Carolina simply because South Carolina was a right-to-work state.
If we could wrap it up, please.
My point is this. We just simply want more jobs. We want more union jobs. We want more jobs. All right-to-work states increased their union memberships because when the pie got bigger, it got bigger for everybody. That's all I'm asking you to do is send a signal per Commissioner Richardson's statement. Senator Walker and Representative Schmidt won't even consider this. You folks, Jason Gilman is my commissioner. I wanted him to bring this tonight because of the health and safety issues. Let me just close in saying this. I work at Farmers Insurance. My little agency on 8th Street, I went through the files in preparation for tonight's meeting. 693 policies in Traverse City were bought to get tabs for their license plate. And the next month, they canceled their policy because they could not afford the premiums. Y'all need to call your insurance people tomorrow and increase your liabilities under insured, uninsured motorists because there are so many people. I'm one of 33 insurance offices. And there's 693 people in Traverse City driving without car insurance tonight because they can't afford it because they don't have the income and the jobs to pay for it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Amanda Sweet.
Hello, my name's Amanda Sweet, 6323 Elkview Drive, Williamsburg. I obviously am against right-to-work legislation, any reference to it. I love it that people are getting up here and saying that they don't agree with unions, but they take their vacations, they take their lunch breaks, they don't have to subject their 8-year-old children to sweatshops. All of that is because of unions. This is not the time to be creating this battle. We don't need this fight right now. Michigan is just getting back on its feet. Collective bargaining is where we're going to save the most money. The UAW alone has given $775 million in concessions in 6 years. We are doing our part to balance the budget. I have to chuckle to myself a little bit when people reference that I happen to be a state of Michigan employee and I make too much money. We do not compete with the private sector at all. If I didn't want to work for a union, I would go to work for someone else. I have the ability to do that. I'm a grown woman, I can make those choices. 86% of employers are not union shops, so anybody that is opposed to the way that unions conduct their business, they're free to go work in a different shop. That's what I wanted to call to your attention. Thank you for interrupting me, proving my point. But that's what I'd like to say, that I'm in opposition of right-to-work legislation. I don't think this is the appropriate venue. I know that we've already discussed this, but I've been watching Mr. Gilman, and I think that it's pretty disrespectful the way that you treat your fellow commissioner, Commissioner Richardson, and I didn't vote for you. And
Let's just move on with the comment, please.
that's it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
David Ritter.
I'm here in support of this resolution. My name is David Ritter, 5200 Gallatin, Fife Lake, Michigan. I've worked in union shops before. Unions have done a lot of good for this country, but I don't believe that if you disagree with what your union is doing, that you should have to support that union. You know, I think that this is a good venue for this. Most of us don't have the opportunity to go down to Lansing and air this out in a committee meeting. So I think that this is very appropriate, and thank you for the time to speak. Thank you.
Elizabeth Webster.
Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Elizabeth Webster. I live at 207 South Cedar Street in Traverse City. And was born in TC, and I'm a current resident. Former union member. When I lived in Flint, I worked at Michigan Bell, and I would belong to the CWA, which was Communications Workers of America. And I'd like to speak in support of the Right to Work resolution. I believe this is a freedom issue. Individual self-determination is intrinsic to the American culture, and the choice to belong or pay dues to a union should be an individual's choice. Unions began to protect workers from unfair conditions that the bosses compelled them to endure under threat of losing their jobs. Now unions are compelling workers to join or pay dues under threat of losing their jobs. What difference does it make if the compulsion comes from the job boss or the union boss? And as far as being able to address this issue here in the commission meeting, this is where government begins, at the bottom, with the people. And the commissioners are elected by us, and I think that we have access to you. And that's the best part of being in America, is that we can come forward as individuals and speak to each of you face to face and air our views, and they will be listened to as individual views and as views of your constituents. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Jerry LeRoy.
Thank you for this opportunity to speak. My name is Jerry LeRoy. I live at 885 East South Airport Road. For me, the right to work law exemplifies our Constitution, which implies the freedom of work is based on individual choice and personal ability. When individuals make choices, each also has the responsibility to consider if their choice improves the work condition, is it a win-win for all parties, and does it benefit the community, the state, and the nation. When we fight to control others' right of choice and force people to join organizations and/or pay for membership, especially when they don't agree with the organization's philosophy or methods in order to get on or keep a job, we are no longer a free republic, but a mobocracy. To earn the freedom of choice, we must also accept the responsibility for those choices. According to the U.S. Department of Labor, right-to-work states lead the nation in creating new private sector jobs, while compulsory unionism states suffer the worst job losses. When private sector jobs are lost, tax revenues go down, and states that also have public sector unions are hit extra hard and thus experience the worst economic difficulty. We have only to drive around Michigan and see the empty commercial buildings to know jobs are leaving this state. Business owners do not find Michigan a profitable place to do business. And speaking as a small business owner, I can personally testify to that. Cuts in state spending and rising taxes is the economic climate we are all experiencing. If you don't believe your own eyes and the thinness of your wallet, the census confirmed the mass exodus from Michigan with the count of this last census. I believe in freedom of choice. I think right to work offers the best opportunity for employees and employers alike. I think this will bring greater prosperity to this state and all the people who live here. There is an old saying, if you keep doing what you've always done, you're going to keep getting what you've always got. And since the 1960s, job has decreased in Michigan over this whole time. It means that we're not doing anything right here. And speaking from having moved from a right-to-work state of Texas, I was amazed at how much more it costs to live in Michigan. And Texas has got all kinds of jobs. Michigan does not. Due to the loss in population, I will be in the 6th district for future elections and will actively campaign against anyone who does not stand up for our individual freedom of choice or stand up to bring jobs back to Michigan or stand up for the principles espoused in our great Constitution. Thank you.
George Yackel. You don't want to go? No. Okay. Jody Ferry.
Good evening. My name is Joseph Ferry. I reside at 2054 Arrowhead Drive, Traverse City. In my younger years, I was a card-carrying Teamsters member. As I got older and got smarter and started to run my own business, I realized that unions had served a very good purpose. But overall, in my opinion at least, freedom of choice is what this is all about. And this country stands and was founded on the basis of freedom of choice, and we should remain such. If this is a local, if not a local issue, what is a local issue? It has to start where you live in the county you reside in. Please keep open the option and the freedom to choose. Thank you.
Thank you.
Boy, George. Palachi.
I'm going to pass also, because most of what I've been saying.
Thank you, George.
Oh, Joseph Ferry again. Was there a Jody?
That was his wife.
Do you didn't want to go? Oh, okay, okay. How about Joseph Thomas?
No comment.
Tim Bose, Boss?
Tim Boss.
Boss.
My name's Tim Boss. I drove a little over 200 miles to be here to exercise my right to free speech, and I appreciate that very much. Our nation was founded a little over 235 years ago, and even though there's nations that have been around for well over 1,000 years, for some reason, we just blow the doors off of everybody. We supply 25% of the economic powerhouse in this world, and I believe it's because we have freedom. Now, 235 years ago, we were given the freedom to choose who to associate with and who not to associate with. Back in 1935, part of that freedom was stripped away from me. So I was forced to join a union whether I want to or not. I hear a lot of people talking about how the unions are doing all these great things and everything else. Right to work doesn't take away their right to exist. It just gives me back my right to join them if I so choose. I have been a member of the UAW and the operating engineers as a skilled tradesman. Those two unions did a lot of good things, but they have changed and they held me back. I decided to work harder, be smarter, and I wanted to make as much money as I could, and I was held back because I was required to be paid the same amount that my co-workers were, even though I was working twice as hard. I don't want to take the unions out of the picture. I will fight to the death to be able to join a union if I so choose. But by the same token, I want my right to choose. That's what has made this country great, and that's why I'm here, because I want to stand up for it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Kathy Van Hoylinger. It's close.
Good evening. My name is Kathy Ben Howlingen. I live at 3937 Sherwood Forest Drive, Traverse City. I am a teacher in Traverse City, and I don't want to appeal to your compassion or your social justice or lack of, but I would like to appeal to your sense of economics. I have lost several $1,000s in the last couple of years because of the policies of the state government, anti-education policies. And I know that for me, I cannot go downtown and buy things anymore. I don't buy clothes, I'm not getting a new car. There's all sorts of things that I have stopped spending because of the difference that this current climate in Lansing has made for me. And if you multiply that by the 600 teachers here in Traverse City, times about $1,500, $2,000 each, we're talking over $1 million that is not put into this economy in Grand Traverse County because we have lower wages because of union busting things. And my children graduated from college in Michigan. They have jobs in Michigan. 3 of my daughter's friends went to North Carolina to get teaching jobs. They came back in 3 or 4 years because the pay, that's a right-to-work state, the pay is so low there. They said that people are leaving, as soon as they can, teachers will get a job in a different state because they just do not make enough to live on there. And if you think this is a freedom, civil rights issue instead of a political, ideological issue, then I have a plot of oceanfront property to sell you in Arizona, because this is just an issue that should not be here, and it's any state that has any job that has whether you could be a union member or not a union member, the union members are going to make more money, and that is going to put money into your into the economy. So it's not taking money away, it's giving you more economic benefits. So thank you for your time. I don't think this should be here. I don't think you have enough information. You've got a lot of statistics. I've read a book once called How to Lie with Statistics. You have so many different conflicting statistics that I don't think you can make a choice anyway. And so I don't think this should be here, so please vote this down.
Francis Cullen.
My name is Francis Cullen. I live at 3162 English Woods Drive. And since we're talking about choice tonight, this is a choice that we should all be making. And the choice is to repeal PA4, the emergency manager law. You talk about undemocratic. You talk about the Constitution. This is it. Okay? Sign one of these petitions, and then what it does. Sorry?
It's off topic. You're not on the topic.
Okay.
If you'll speak.
I think I am on topic.
There will be public
We're talking about
comment
the
after.
Constitution. We're talking about constitutional principles. We're talking about choice.
Sir, excuse me. The discussion right now has to do with the Right to Work Act, the resolution that's before us.
I'll tell you right now, talk to the people in Benton Harbor and their right to work. That's what this is about. So get one of these petitions, sign it, and this will freeze the law and put it on the ballot for all of us to choose whether or not
Sir, I
we
believe
think
you're out of order.
Michigan.
You're out of order, please.
Oh, I'm sorry.
If you wish to speak to the matter before us, which is the Right to Work Act, that's fine.
Pat Maher, Mayor? Mayor.
My name is Pat Maher. I live at 1978 South Long Lake Road. I'm a union representative for the sheet metal workers in the greater Grand Traverse area. I am opposed to right to work. I spent 3 years in Arizona in a right to work state and seen the exploitation of the workers there, unsafe work conditions. I've listened to both sides of the aisle today on this right to work, and I think we've kind of got off track a little bit here. Michigan has lost quite a few jobs. Michigan was, everybody knows this was the car manufacturer of the world. I think what our politicians need to do is start focusing on revamping all these trade acts, agreements that we got that have sold jobs to other countries, and watch Michigan go right down the drain. It's not the right to work that's going to put Michigan back on the right track. It's bringing these jobs back from these unfair trade agreements that we have been crafted by our politicians. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the last person, Arthur Hogan.
My name is Arthur Hogan. I'm a taxpayer at 1741 Indian Woods Drive, Traverse City, Michigan. I came here tonight because I was curious about what sort of equity a county board would have in an issue like right to work. It seemed like an odd kind of a direction to go. I've listened to all of what's been said, and I still don't have any better idea what the county board is doing, spending taxpayer money. It's very entertaining. It's great political theater. We've all gotten excited about the issue one way or another, or maybe both ways. But I'd like to know, what are my taxpayer dollars doing entertaining a room full of people on an issue that this county commission has no equity in? It's not as though this county commission has a long history of doing fantastic work. I think that a lot of stuff you could be working on and ought to be working on. I just, it's sort of unfair to mention sewage treatment, but I'll just let it go at that. Please get back to work on the county's priorities, and this has been entertaining tonight, but let's drop it. Thank you.
Mary Jean McLinn.
Mary
Jane McClin, 512 West 8th Street, and I oppose this, and I also question why it's before you tonight. I'm a 52-year member of Communication Workers of America, and the issue that hasn't really been discussed with the right to work is women. And when I entered into the telephone industry at an entry-level job, my union, that I call it now, and I was a little reluctant at that time. I'm not like all the other people that are talking about, I was in a union and I left and I'm smarter than the next person and I started my own business. I was the opposite. I was a little skeptical. You know, why do they want this money? Well, then they were so ahead of the game with women. I had the choice. Did I want to climb a telephone pole and make more wages? Did I want to go in switching? This is way before women were able to even consider doing those kinds of jobs. Did I want to be a custodian? I had every opportunity to choose what I wanted to do to, one, make better wages and have a more rewarding job, one that I wanted to do. I had to work hard. I had to obey all the company rules. You're totally micromanaged in that industry at that time, but you did that, you got rewards. You got moved up. And you had to apply. You had to have credentials. You had to get some extra training. But it worked for me. And I'm concerned about right to work for women. Is that going to set women back? I see a strong potential. Because when I think of right to work, I think so much of the service industry, of which women are a big, big part of that. And I really do oppose this from that angle as a woman. Thank you.
Thank you.
Joel Kasler.
Hello, my name is Joel Kassler from 7552 North Long Lake Road in Traverse City, Michigan, Long Lake Township. And I approach this commission tonight to ask you to reject the so-called resolution by Commissioner Gilman. I have very few things to say about it, but I want you to remember this. I've been a utility worker for almost 30 years, recently retired, and I had the rare opportunity to represent a number of our brothers and sisters in the trades. I want you to remember one thing, though. I learned a number of things while I was representing these people, but the most important thing to remember is we didn't hire them, we didn't fire them, but we were obligated to represent them. That's what membership is about, and regardless of whether they were an objector or not, we had to represent. We may not have liked it, we may not have agreed with the situation, but we did our fair and level job, our best. Now, if Commissioner Gilman does not see the simplicity in that, then it's very difficult for me to understand otherwise. Thank you for your time.
Nikki Towner.
My name is Nikki Towner, 15275 Smoky Hollow, Traverse City. And as I've sat here, I haven't been to many of these meetings, but I'm really curious who you will say you represent when you take a vote. We have, I don't know how many of you are, there are 8 of you or 9 of you, and we have maybe 100, 150 people here. I don't think you've taken any surveys. I would never expect a vote like this to be taken and a recommendation made to anyone if you haven't polled Traverse City citizens or the people who voted for you. Everyone in our city or county isn't aware of what's going on, and this seems like a pretty important recommendation. So I just want to question you as to how or why you think you have enough knowledge to recommend for our county. So.
Is there anyone else wishing to make comment? Where are the cards, right? Anyone else wishing to make comment at that time? Seeing none, I will bring it back to the county board. You have a resolution in your packet. Do I have a motion to support that resolution?
Is it inappropriate for me to make the motion, or should somebody?
You can make the motion. I just want a motion a second before we have the discussion.
Okay. I move we adopt this resolution.
Support.
Thank you.
Okay. We have a motion by Gilman, supported by Max Bauer. Is there further discussion? Ross?
Commissioner Gilman, you provided a rather lengthy piece of alleged economic research emanating from some group in Springfield, Virginia. I'm not familiar with the group and don't know what it is, although I did, by the way, notice that they were a nonprofit, so I was a little curious if you were going to maybe explore whether they were violating their nonprofit status by taking a position on a controversial public issue. Also, I mean, most people, many of the people supporting your right to work resolution seem to have access to that piece because they were quoting from it. But what this is really about is, you know, a trend that's been going on in the last couple of years here, which I generally put under the heading of the financial crisis and the economic problems we're having are all the fault of greedy poor people. If we can just somehow take care of those greedy poor people, and then everything will be fine. This is about driving down the cost of labor, number one, and breaking the political power that unions exercise, you know, as a corollary to that. I will not be supporting it.
Rob?
I've heard a lot of comments about this being about breaking unions, but what I'm reading is simply to give an individual a choice whether to join or not join. Could someone explain to me, how does that break a union? Maybe Ross, you seem to be against this.
I don't believe I used the phrase breaking the union. I said it was a way.
Well, I didn't say, I'm not putting words in your mouth.
I said it was a way to reduce union power.
I mean, how does this, why do the unions care so much whether an individual has a choice to come in or out? I'm not seeing the connection between that and breaking the unions.
Well, it's like,
I think the public
it'd be like
comments
getting
on
a
that.
free ride on your taxes. It'd be like, you know, getting somebody to build a new road in front of your house, but, oh, by the way, I'm exempt from taxes, so I don't have to pay for that. Let everybody else pay for it. You know, give me a service, but charge everybody else. I mean, at some point, there's no point in being in the union at all, because someone else will shoulder the burden.
Rob, or Jason?
Some folks might think of it as a free ride, but it's not a free ride. It's, in fact, currently, in right to work, you still have to abide by the contract that's negotiated, okay? That's not a free ride. That's still a limitation. But the opportunity is to say, look, I'm not going to pay to support that negotiation because I don't believe in that negotiation. What it does is it makes the unions more accountable, more entrepreneurial, maybe have to actually compete a little bit in the realm of ideas and consequence. This is a good thing, and it does bring jobs. You know, the statistics are government statistics. They, you know, I don't care if they're quoted in Alaska or Virginia. They're government statistics. And using those government statistics, it shows there is a correlation between job growth and the ability to choose whether or not you belong to a union.
Ross?
You know, I could easily just quote the statistic that Michigan gets more snow than Florida, so therefore the reason we have more job growth in Florida is because they don't get as much snow. It has about as much economic logic as the study that you're quoting.
That's absurd.
Order, please.
Let me respond.
Jason?
That's absolutely absurd. The difference between a natural effect and economic conditioning.
It's no more absurd than the study that you passed out so proudly to everyone.
All right, gentlemen, if we could not have a debate on this issue, I think a couple comments should be made. First, you know, when we talk about the unions and the union representation, what we hear from unions all the time is that they represent all of the workers that work for the company, whether they're members or not. If you allow people to choose not to belong, whether or not you're going to break the unions, it's possible. I don't know that it would happen or wouldn't happen. But, you know, we've heard from a number of representatives from unions here tonight and over the last couple weeks that whether members that work for the company were or were not members of the union, when they negotiated the contracts, they got those. It's no different than when we talk about how we treat county contracts. We have non-union exempt employees, but we align their contract with the union contracts because we think it's the fair thing to do. If you go to some of these other issues and choose not to do that, then you could have a completely different, you know, class of employees maybe. You know, I don't know how you term it. You know, I do have a comment from Commissioner Newman that I guess I need to read here is because he wasn't here and he saw fit to make sure that I had a copy. Please excuse me from this meeting due to the recent death of my brother Mike, who resided in Atlanta, Georgia. Regarding the item being presented by Commissioner Gilman on the subject matter of the right to work, I have read the resolution and would like to give some perspective for your consideration. During my 19 years on the County Board of Commissioners, we have not taken the issue of pros and cons of collective bargaining and the issue of unions within the employment of the Grand Traverse County. During the past 19 years, we have done our utmost best effort to have good relations with our collective bargaining units, our non-union staff members, and our elected officials. During this time period, I can attest that we have attempted to keep union, non-union, and elected officials on the same basis of compensation based on the qualifications of their position. The County Board has a number of options with Commissioner Gilman's item. Number one, approve the resolution as presented and send it to our state senator, state representative, Governor Schneider's office. Approve the resolution with amendments. Not take any action on the resolution. Not approve the resolution, commissioners would sign a letter on county letterhead to our state senator, state representative, and Governor Schneider's office expressing their personal opinions and acceptance of the resolution as presented and disclose that they are not representing the views of the boards of commissioners. I hope my viewpoints will be helpful in your deliberations of the proposal being submitted by Commissioner Gilman. That's Larry's comment. Dennis?
Go ahead. I just wanted to point out, too, that I received a letter from Michael Estes today, and I put copies of it on all of your desks, and he asked me to share that with you, and I just wanted that in the record that his comments are before you.
Jason? One last thing, and Larry in his letter mentioned that we treat the unions and the non-union members the same. There are some union members, when I was doing my orientation with the different departments of this county, and this is not about this county, this is about the bigger picture and our support and hopefully an advancement of a better idea for the state of Michigan. But during my orientation, there was someone who did address a concern. In the last couple of years, they were brought into a union that they did not want to be a part of. And now they are limited by certain work rules. And they would have preferred to save the few dollars a month that they're also spending and still getting the same thing.
Rob?
I just want to share some perspective with the commission. It kind of represents my position at this. Currently, the states that have a similar legislation to what Commissioner Gilman's suggesting, there's 22 of them, and They are Alabama, Arizona, Arkansas, Florida, Georgia, Idaho, Iowa, Kansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Nebraska, Nevada, North Carolina, North Dakota, Oklahoma, South Carolina, South Dakota, Tennessee, Texas, Utah, Virginia, and Wyoming. To my knowledge, there's still unions there functioning and doing what unions do, and representing people. I don't hate unions, but I don't see this as a union killer. I see this as an individual right issue. And as an American, I certainly support the rights of an individual, because America was founded on that rugged individualism that I think we all cherish as Americans. And I hope the union doesn't take offense to that. But I'm looking at this as an individual rights issue versus an anti-union issue.
Chris?
I represent a very conservative district at the moment, Garfield 5. And I also represent the west side of Traverse City, which is not as conservative as Garfield 5. I wanted to let everybody know that, I have a mix of people. I have heard from 2 county employees, one who is opposed to this resolution, who has said, I have I hate to say this, but I'll say it anyway. I have a supervisor from hell, and without the union, I would really be in trouble. I've heard from another employee who said, I don't want to join the union. I want that freedom. I will tell everyone that the reason I supported and voted to have this discussion was because I do believe that the voters that I represent should know where I stand on this issue. And I do support right to work.
Order, please. Further comments? Having seen no further comments, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Lemkool,
Yes.
Richardson,
No.
Thomas,
Well, I finally decided yes.
Max Bauer,
Yes.
Gilman,
Yes.
Henschel,
Yes.
Chairman Wheelock.
No. Okay, having that item will be passed, now we'll move back to our current agenda.
Mr. Chairman, do you want to consider maybe a 3-minute recess to allow people to
The
leave the room?
mass exodus?
Yeah.
All right, we'll stand adjourned for 3 minutes. Thank you all.
Don't.
Excuse me, if we could get this called back to order, please. We have a very long agenda yet this evening. Commissioners, if you could take your seats, please. Rob, if you could take your seat, please, we'll reconvene the meeting, please. Right, it could be pulled from the, it could be pulled from the consent calendar.
Not that easy, but whatever.
Probably. Where's Thomas?
He had to go get some water. He said he'd be right back.
We'll move forward. The next order of business will be the consent calendar. If we could read the consent calendar, please.
The purpose of the consent calendar is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by one commission motion without discussion. And any member of the commission, staff, or the public may ask that any item on the consent calendar be removed therefrom and placed elsewhere on the agenda for full discussion. Such request will be automatically respected. If any item is not removed from the consent calendar, the action noted, receive and file, or approval is approved by a single committee action adopting the consent calendar. Receive and file, Community Corrections monthly reports for May, Commission on Aging monthly report May, Community Collaborative Coordinators report June, Veterans Services monthly report May 2011, report on NM Transportation Alliance. For approval, Commission on Aging, Area Agency on Aging 2012 Annual Implementation Plan, approval of the 2011-2012 Community Corrections Contracts, Mitchell & McCormick, Inc. Server Support Agreement Renewal, Tuberculosis Mycobacterium Services Agreement, surplus vehicles, property room items to be declared surplus, oil change contract.
Having heard the consent calendar, is there anyone in the audience wishing to have any of these items removed? Seeing none, are there any that the commissioners wish to have removed? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Support.
Motion by Limco, supported by Thomas. Further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Richardson,
Yes.
Thomas,
Yep.
Max Bauer,
Yes.
Gilman,
Yes.
Henschel,
Yes.
Lemkool,
Yes.
Chairman Wheelock.
Yes, ma'am. This brings us to department action items. First, we have the 2012 budget. Dennis, are you handling this piece?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. John, I'm going to ask you to come up and talk, or to answer questions on this. We sent you, I believe, at home, information with a potential census for you to consider, or excuse me, a survey for you to consider. I guess I want to point out to the board that what we're trying to do here is begin to develop something similar to budgeting for outcomes, to give you a start on some information. We're not going to kid you and tell you that this is by any means perfect. It's just a start. We worked on this as staff with the departments, and we developed this survey that we'd like to put up on our website. If you approve it tonight, we will advertise it starting tomorrow. We've done press releases, and we want to get this information out to let people know that they can go to our website and they can vote on this and just give us their general feelings. And we tried our best to capture the general issues before the board and the general areas of concern. So My suggestion is, if you want to make changes to it, it would be appropriate to make those changes tonight. I know that might be short notice, but the problem is that the time schedule that you approved a week ago is extremely aggressive and does not leave a great deal of time for us to get this information out. So, John, did you want to talk about the specifics of the census or answer questions? How did you want to handle it?
Sure. You should, John Syke, Grand Traverse County Planning and Development Director. You should have received in your packet, I believe on page 78 and 79. This is a very simple survey that would be used online. It was developed utilizing SurveyMonkey software, but it basically is asking respondents, and this would be an open survey, so anybody who has access to the internet could respond to it. There are the ability using that software to restrict people from doing multiple surveys, and obviously it's not a scientific survey, but it is an opportunity to provide input. And what you do with that, I guess, is to be up to you to figure that out later. But the idea here is to give at least some input from the citizens. If you recall, a couple years ago, over at the Civic Center, the county board did conduct a facilitated process where people could vote on different priorities and issues. This is a very simple way of doing something similar to that. It at least gives people the opportunity to provide input. There's really two questions. One is that it identifies 11 groups of services that the county provides, and what it is asking is that people rank those. The way the software is laid out is that you can only put one number 2, one number 3, and so forth. If somebody puts down a 1 and then later on puts down another number 1, it'll move to that number 1. So it restricts people from loading it from one way or the other. The other question is looking at, you'll recognize the 8 budget outcomes or goals that you have in your strategic plan, and basically it's asking the respondent, if you had a hypothetical $100, where would you put those monies towards? So it's looking not so much at programs, but it's looking at what are the outcomes that you're trying to achieve through the application of your budget. And so it's just again, another tool to provide that input from the public. And then there's an opportunity at the end if people want to leave comment or the reasoning behind their decisions. I don't think we'll be able to quantify that, but certainly the other 2 questions will be able to quantify and show you what those results are.
And as John said, really what we're talking about here is kind of one tool that you can use when you've drilled down and really start making decisions. We don't expect this to direct your decisions or to help you and to make, help you make definitive decisions, at the beginning of the process. But when you get down to it's this versus that, what do I think is important? You might look at this survey, you might look at the next tool that we're going to give you, and they may help you make those decisions. So, Jason?
John, could I make one recommendation? I note that it says you need to divide the $100 between all the following budget outcomes, but there's no number 9, and number 9 is lower taxes. I'm just saying that maybe as an option, maybe a return or maybe it'll at least sends us a message from the people that maybe they don't see as much priority, in comparison to perhaps doing less.
It's kind of ironic that you mentioned that, because if you look at where these 8 come from are out of the strategic plan that the county board has.
These are established goals.
But if you look at number 8, it's kind of ironic because it talks about fiscal responsibility, and it might not be quite as clear to people about that, but I think that's the intent of that.
If the county board wants to add a 9th one that's lower taxes, you can vote to do that.
I looked at 8 and I thought kind of along those lines. I just didn't know.
We could clarify that if you want to add to that, perhaps.
Well, I believe these are
are basically taken right out of our strategic plan. They
Yeah,
are,
verbatim.
as we adopted it.
But-
So, feel free to add it if you feel it needs to be added. It's your
not-
survey.
Yeah, you can do however you want to do it.
No, when we do this, is it possible you could go on the radio and talk about it? I mean, you talk about getting...
We're going to do press releases, we're going to make ourselves available, we're going to do an ad in the newspaper. Hopefully, we can get the newspaper to do an article, and maybe even a TV station or something to do it as well. Chris? I'm sorry.
Dennis, I'd mentioned this before, and I don't know if it's possible. Is there some way where a computer can only answer the survey one time, or
I'm going to let John answer that.
can you just keep going and going and going?
Well, that's one of the things that the Survey Monkey does have those restrictions on terms of
You can only do it once from any computer.
From
If you can
any
get to 5
IP
computers,
address.
you can do it 5 times. But you can only do it once from a computer.
That, I like that. The other question I have is, we have a lot of seniors, especially that use the senior center, the clients of Commission on Aging. They don't have computers. Are we going to be able to perhaps put some paper copies in at the senior center, or?
I was thinking about that as we were talking about it. I think we certainly can. I think, Georgia left, but I think that we could announce through the senior center that we can make computers available to them. We have some here as well. So, we can accommodate that, yes. I think there's ways to do it.
You can't make computers available to them because they can only have one computer.
No, that's a good point.
Yeah.
You're right.
But paper copies.
But we can do paper copies,
You'd
and
have
we
to
can
paper-
input them manually.
But then the problem is you'd have to be able to input them manually. But the other thing I'd really like to see is a PDF file for us that we can send out individually to our constituents if we have in our email list, and also to each of our townships and organizations around the county. So if we can do it, send each of us a PDF file of this, then we can send it out, and other people can, with an email list or where they go to be able to do their
So
voting.
you're talking about a descriptive letter that says where you can go to do this?
Whatever.
I mean, we need them to go on.
Okay.
The Survey Monkey to fill out the
I mean, this is
survey.
very limited, because one of the things we were trying to do was do something in a real timely manner.
Okay.
And that's where this
So I think we can do that. We can give you
Just
something
send us
that'll
a
give
letter
you
that we
the
can-
website and the address so people
Perfect.
can go to it and.
Perfect, yeah, I think it's really important that, because we have our own resources too to be able to send this stuff out to, and I think it's really important that we are able to be able to do that.
Ross?
I don't mean to stand this on its head, but I read it over and I just thought, I understand that, it's not scientific and, we're not going to have to depend on the results, but yet the fact that we do it means that we hopefully get something reasonably useful. And my suggestions would be that the second part, the 1 through 8, and if you want to add the, lower taxes as 9, I would make those the priorities, prioritize these, okay?
I like
And then
that.
go back to the first page,
And put the money in.
and then, number 1, I would put how much money, in general fund money, we're spending on each of these programs. How you can say, when we only spend $200,000 a year on Parks and Rec, how can you say, well, that's more important than spending $14 million for, if that's a rough number,
Well-
for the sheriff's department? So here's my suggestion, open up for discussion. I would put in a number that says, this is how much we're spending this year, general fund. Do you think we should spend more?
Or less.
The same, or less in our coming budget?
I don't think we could, in any reasonable amount of time, determine the amount of money that we're spending in those 11 categories. It would take a good deal of time to split that out because, for example, human services might affect parts of 7 or 8 different budgets. Okay, so you'd be asking us to go in and try, I just don't know how we would be able to do that in a reasonable period of time.
Then remove the money part and
Well-
and take 1 through 11 and say, more, the same, or less?
Let me just say that we had that discussion back and forth a half a dozen times. I personally originally thought that's where the money should be, was on that one. And we went back and forth, and we finally decided, no, we'd put the money on the other one. I don't have a strong feeling one way or another where the money is. If you think, that's where I originally thought the money should go, was on the first page. So if the board's more comfortable putting the money on that page, I'm fine with doing that. I think that makes sense. I'd be fine with that. It's really up to you.
I think it's fine the way it is. I do like number 9 is lower taxes. I would like to see that on there.
Well, if you put number 9 as lower taxes, listen, we all know that's going to be number 1 on everybody's thing, okay? So you can do it, but the only thing is, I would ask you for your, I would ask you to make that only count when everybody fills out all 9. In other words, I don't want 5,000 people just going and hitting a 1 and leaving the site.
I like that.
They need
Yeah.
to
Oh, yes.
still address everything else.
Yes.
So, I mean, if you want to add lower taxes on there, add it. I can tell you the answer to that question, but if you want to add it, the only thing I'd want to do is design it in a way that they still have to rank everything else. Or, excuse me, lower taxes, then how would we do that with the dollar thing? Would that make sense? It makes sense to take the dollars away from that and put it on the other
That was
one.
one of the issues that we actually had with the fiscal responsibility item on there, because fiscal responsibility is intended to mean that you'd be more conservative in how you apply your fund dollars. And so, but the idea is, where do you spend the $100? So that was actually one of the issues that we kind of had a hard time kind of rectifying, but we decided to leave it as is because it was part of those 8 goals.
Lowering taxes doesn't really fit in with page 1. I'm calling these page 1 and page 2. But, I think lowering taxes should probably be where you're ranking priorities. It has to be on the page where you're ranking priorities. You can change the page you're ranking priorities. Do you see what I'm saying? But, I mean, that should be rank. I don't know how you take and say, I want you to put this many dollars towards lowering taxes.
I guess you could look at it this way. I mean, the Congress allocates so many hundred billions of dollars in a rebate check or something. The last couple of administrations have done this. I mean, in a way, you could look at it in that way. So people spend $50 in 1 through 8, and they say, hey, I want $50 less spent, and I'd prefer a tax break with that $50. I guess that'd be the one way to look at it.
Yeah, I suppose you could.
I mean, I understand. Frankly, I'm fine with number 8 being, fiscal responsibility,
I'm fine with the way it is. I'm really concerned that if you put that in there and everybody comes in and says, lower my taxes, now you're going to lower everything that you're going to do in every one of these categories. You're going to lower because the people have spoken and they're going to say, lower my taxes. That means you're going to have to lower all the services in all 8 areas. Are we ready as commissioners? Are we ready and willing to do that? And if you're not ready and willing to do that, don't ask that question.
Rob?
I like the question. If it comes down to something big that the public hates, well, you guys want to lower taxes, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, my question, John, is really a technical issue. If, say, a husband and wife live in a household and they have one computer between them, can they both take the survey?
No.
And that's a concern. And which likewise, maybe there's 3 or 4 adult people in a home versus one person. If we thought of ways, like put your name on it maybe, or,
We can look into that a little bit more.
Okay.
But, to be honest with you, it's like any other type of thing that's out on the internet. If somebody wants to probably fill out 100 of these, they'll probably find a way to do it. I don't think it's foolproof. So
my other question, Dennis, have you, shown this to your wife or, somebody that's kind of disconnected from what, the inner workings of what we do, and see how they react to the survey, and do they understand it? Do they feel it's a fair survey?
No, we have not.
But we did look at other surveys. This type of format has been used in other areas. That we were looking at places like Indianapolis and Lincoln, Nebraska, and some other places. So we didn't, it's not something like we've totally devised by ourselves. And that includes the part that has the 8 budget outcome goals. You would think that maybe it would be worded differently, but that's kind of part of the budgeting for outcome type of process that we were kind of emulating.
Rob, you bring up a really good comment, though. One thing, even if the board adopts this, the one thing we do have to change on this, we cannot use any of these acronyms. We have to spell out all these words. WIC, nobody knows what that means. We didn't get that far along. Even MSU, we should probably, we have to,
I guess,
Spell
you know,
those out.
from my perspective, I thought it was a good document. It was certainly a good place to start, you know. I like the idea of the prioritizing in the, on the first page, and the description of the services that we're providing, because that's one of the things we've talked about all the time, is what services are we providing, you know, and...
Commissioners, if you want to take a week and finalize this next week, all it means is it's one less week that we have it out there for the public. But I want you to be comfortable with this.
What kind of a time frame did we expect to have this back by? Was
John,
it August 1st?
Actually, we were intended to have this kind of run between starting this week, going to August 1st, and then collecting, tabulating the data, and then having it for your August 17th meeting.
All right, so we could probably push it out a week.
Yeah,
couldn't
and
we,
I think
John?
we would still, the
Would
thing
you be
about
better-
surveys,
would
you
you
don't
feel
want them
better?
out there too long anyways.
I'm pretty good with both pages, you know, and I'm not sure that I put cut taxes on there at all, because I'm pretty sure everybody would like to see lower taxes, but they don't want to talk about what the ramifications of cutting those taxes are.
Right.
And that's going to drop down on us. But, you know, 1 through 8 on page 2 of this survey are exactly what we've developed through our strategic planning process, which involved a multitude of public meetings and the little electronic clickers and all of the stuff that was involved in that. So I have no problem with using 1 through 8 as our goals. You know, what's always interesting, and it'll be interesting to see if it complies here, we've done, in the time I've been here, we've done multiple times. Everybody likes to talk about environmental quality, but when we ask them what they want to spend for it, it ends up down about 8th or 9th.
Well, every time I've been involved with one of those surveys, roads comes out as number 1.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it does.
Well, and
then
maybe that's what we
the
need
other
to
thing
look at.
The other thing that's important to realize is, when we talk about this not being perfect, if you think about it, roads may come out as number 1. Let's say public safety comes out as number 2. Okay, if we didn't have great public safety and we didn't have the resources that we put towards public safety and we had a higher crime rate, roads might be number 1. But because people are generally satisfied, you can't read in that it's not as important as roads, because it may be more important, but people are satisfied with the level we have. You see, that's the other side of the survey that you have to always consider when you look at these things. So they're far from perfect. You know, they just give you an indication of where people are. Because people will do that. People will say that public safety may not be as important, but it's only because they feel very safe.
My only question is number 2, is the Grand Traverse Pavilions. I don't think we put any tax dollars into that. That's self-funded, isn't it?
Well,
Other than we
here's what
and
we
I
did.
question why that would be in there.
Well, we don't with the Commission on Aging either.
Well, the Commission on Aging shouldn't be in there either.
Well, here's what we did. On the survey, we talked about where resources are going generally from county. When people look at this, they put money into millage for Commission on Aging. They're putting money into county. Same with pavilions. So we thought about that, Commissioner. What we did is we said, on this survey, we kept everything generally so we could see where people thought things were important. Okay, when we get to the second item, you're going to see we didn't put Commission on Aging in there. We didn't put pavilions in there. We didn't put Department of Public Works in there, because we were then trying to focus in on where are the general fund dollars going to be spent. But it's a good point, and it's something you may want to consider.
I just wanted to make sure that we are all clarified so we can answer constituents' questions. So because we're going to get questions. So if we have good answers that we can get back to you, that we can get back to the people on, that's what's really important to me, so that I can answer somewhat knowledgeably as to how this question was developed and why they're there.
Let me tell you that, I've told you this before, some of the new commissioners may not have heard this, but when I was in Marquette, for example, we put general fund dollars into the airport. We put general fund dollars into the road commission. We put general fund dollars into the pavilions. Okay? Different system. We're very, very fortunate here not to be in that situation. But we've had discussions over the last 2 years where there may have been a request from the airport for general fund dollars. And we have, in fact, through a bond, put money into roads. with general, with that we're paying back with general fund dollars. So I think that while it's currently not where our money is going, it potentially could be where our money goes, and it might be useful to know how people feel about it. Chris?
I did go over this survey with some of the Commission on Aging board members this week, and they do want Commission on Aging listed under Human Services. They would like to know, how the public feels about their service. So
Okay.
I wanted to share that.
Herb?
I'll make a motion that we go forward with this questionnaire for the community.
Support.
Motion by Limcool, supported by Henschel. Further discussion?
Yeah.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion
Okay,
carries.
thank you. The second issue, this is where we're really going to put you to work.
Yeah.
We passed this out to you tonight. I said we'd pass it out tonight, so it should be at your place. There are two documents. The first one is the letter from me concerning the Budget Service Program ranking prioritization. And then you're going to see a second, a thicker packet. And let me explain the process very briefly. What we did is we went to all the departments and we said, please, we gave them some definitions of what a program was. We worked with the departments and we said, list out all of your programs, your major programs. We put parameters around it. It should be at least 5% of your budget, or did we say 5 or 10? I can't remember. 10. We gave some things so that we didn't get, every little thing that they do. Because what we're trying to do here is ask the county commissioners now to rank what's important, okay? So the thick packet is their responses, okay? And this is very detailed, much more detailed. Much too detailed to ask you to even try to rank, okay? So what we tried to do then, there's like 400 or 500 things here, but it'll give you some good information that you can use to then go to this cover page that's with my memo, okay? And what we did there is we went back and we consolidated those down to about 100 major items. So what we're going to ask you to do is we're going to ask you to take this, and it's online. We send it to you at home. We're going to ask you to go through and set a priority for everything that is behind my letter, okay? And we're going to ask you to prioritize things in 3 categories. Highest priority, and you'll put a 3 in there. Medium priority is a 2, and we gave you definitions on those. And lowest priority, and we gave you a definition of that. You see it sitting before you?
Yeah, but kind of, is that backwards? Kind of.
Nope, there's another whole packet, Commissioner.
Right. No, I understand that. No, I'm just saying, you've got highest priority 3, 2, and 1. Usually, 1 is first and...
Yeah, but we're going to use this to...
They're going to add the points.
Accumulate points. Bring everything together.
I'm sorry.
Believe me, this is not that scientific, but we have a way to do it.
It's right. Okay.
Yeah, okay, so
Add
3, look at it this way, 3 is what you want to give the most resources to.
All right.
Okay? So now, there's a couple of rules here, and we're going to ask you to prioritize these, so you're going to use this, but you'll refer to this to give you information to help you along. And feel free to call departments if you need to call departments. The only rule here beyond that is we're going to ask you not to put any more than 40 in any category. There's about 100. We're going to tell you, don't do more than 40 in one category. So you can't put 50 or 60 in the highest priority category. We're
Okay.
trying to get relative value here.
All right.
So we're going to tell you, there's about 33 in each category. If you took every and you did it equally, we're saying that might not work, so we're going to ask you to keep it to 40. And so if you feel there are 40 programs, pick your 40 highest, and that's your 3 priorities, that's fine. Or if you have 40 that are your lowest, put 40 down there, but don't put 50 or 60 in any one category. Try to break it up, and that'll help us get a relative ranking when we add everything up and divide it out.
You're talking about each white line?
Each white line, not the shaded ones, but each white line. So
And how many white
there's about
lines?
100.
111.
111.
111
Okay?
white lines.
And so we're saying, try to keep it to 40 in any one category. So we're trying to force you
You
into...
want an even split between...
We want to get a
the three.
fairly even split with a little bit of room for you to maneuver, okay? So we're going to ask you to do that, okay? And force them into categories so that, you might have 50 things that you think are the highest priority. We're going to ask you to take 10 of those off and move them down to medium, okay? Chris?
I have a question about the mandated services.
Okay.
And I do appreciate the fact that you've got yes or no as
Okay.
far as mandated service. That's going to be extremely helpful to me.
And today you were sent an email at your home that, or at your address, that has specific descriptions of each program that's mandated, reference to the law that it's mandated with, and some descriptions of how it's mandated. That was sent to you at home today.
Thank you. Now, as far as the mandated stuff, it's mandated. So I rank it a 1. I mean, it's not going to matter, it's mandated.
Well, but here's the difference. There could be a program that's mandated, and remember we talked before about what a serviceable level is?
All right.
Okay, so if there's a program that's mandated, to your constituents, it's not very important, you can rank it as a 1. You're good. Now, if it comes out that all the commissioners felt it had a low ranking, then we got to really drill down.
Okay.
What is the serviceable
all
level
right.
of this, because we don't feel it's very important.
Okay.
Okay?
Very good, Dennis.
Yeah, a couple of things that I don't see on here, and that's why I'm asking, is the Child Advocacy Center came to us and said, we may need your help or your support in the future. So I don't see them on here, and I just didn't know if we should have that. Also, we have 211, whether or not we want to support that, and also the Community Collaborative.
Well,
is a special.
What we did is we tried to think, we looked at, this exercise is directly focused as where your general fund dollars are going, okay? We looked at things that you've put general fund dollars into. We didn't look at things that you may decide to put general fund dollars in. So if you want to add it, you can. I don't know that you need to, because I think commissioners will bring up other things at the department. This is just another tool. And, when you get right down to it, what happens is, there's this much money in the pot, and at the end, commissioners come in and say, I really want to give something to the Child Advocacy Fund. We got to take something from someplace else. So it's up to you. If you want to add it, we can. I think you can just deal with those special things at budget time, but it's really your preference.
I just didn't know because we have funded 211 in the past, we have funded the Community Collaborative, and we haven't done anything with the Advocacy Center, so.
That's true, yeah.
It's just that we've heard reports, and they said, we are probably going to come after you.
If you want to add those things, you can add those things. That's really up to you.
I don't
You can add them now and put them into the formula, or you can, do your democratic vote when the issue comes up during the budget, and if it gets 5 vote, it passes.
I'm inclined to think that you leave them out of this portion, because this has to do with our direct budget allocations. And then we all know that we're going to have a contingency,
except
which we
that
can make other appropriations.
Commissioner Lemko does bring up one good point, and that is Community Collaborative, because I guess I would say this, I believe we're still funding them in the budget this year. So that is an inconsistency in the way we put this together.
That is listed on there. If you look, are you looking on the 3-page, or not the one, it should be towards the end, there's other appropriations, and that's where you have those
it is on there.
listed.
Yeah.
GT Community Collaborative, it should
So,
be third from the bottom.
Actually, yesterday it was Dean's thought. He said, you got all this together, Dennis, but we didn't do your special appropriations, we call them. Fire education and those kinds of things. So it is on there. It's third from the bottom on the last page, Commissioner. Do you see it?
Oh, okay, sure.
GT Community
Right, okay,
Collaborative.
right.
It is there.
Okay.
Going forward.
So again, this is going to be a lot of work, and it's going to be harder than, it
Oh, yeah.
sounds. This is going to be tough to do, but, pardon?
When do you want it back?
I think it's the 20th?
Tomorrow morning?
No. To the 20th, because we're going to give it to you on the 29th.
We'll have it at the Ways and
At
Means.
the
We
board
are
meeting.
trying to see if our IT department can put something together that would be more of a program similar to the ranking type one, where you could put down up to 40 number 3s and up to 40 number 2s and
Would
40
you make it
number
easier
1s,
for
which
you
might
than
make it a little bit
tabulating
easier in
everything
terms
yourself?
of keeping track on the
Did
number.
we get an answer on that yet, John?
They're still looking into it right now. We should know either tomorrow or
Get an
Friday.
Excel.
Counter of sorts.
Yeah.
Just at glancing at this, there are a couple of items that I'd actually like to give a 0 to. Am I allowed to do that?
You just don't, well, you're only doing 40, so you don't have any votes.
No,
that's not what he's saying.
You have to rank, we're asking you to rank everything.
Everything.
We're just
You just
saying,
can't have any
don't
more
put
than
more than 40 in any
41s
one
or
category.
42s or
Any more than
43s.
41, class one. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
and the reason we didn't want to
All
put
right.
zeros is simply because we think everything has some value, okay? You may not individually, but it has some. But if you read it, it says it includes programs, services not included in the higher medium category, yet they create added or complementary value to the community, okay? These priorities should only be considered for funding only after it has been determined that the high and medium priorities are fully funded.
All right.
Okay? So I just ask you to
Okay.
do the one.
All right. Will do.
And
I can do that.
I think we'll get a pretty interesting response.
It'll be interesting, yes.
Yeah, yeah. I think it'll be interesting.
They see assessing East Bay Township on here, but they pay for all that.
There's several things in here that's paid for.
Okay.
We did not separate out things that were paid for. You know, it was so complicated to try to divide out the
Yeah.
cost.
I
We just
think-
put all the programs
I mean,
there.
Brownfield's paid for too.
Right.
With, not out of general
So,
fund.
so we just put everything
I
down.
did have I mean, I'm still, like, looking at MSUE extension,
Yep.
like, there's like all these different lines from 4H. Is every one of those a separate line, or is there one line for?
Which document are you looking at, Commissioner?
You know, the thicker one. The thicker one. the
See, and all I did
Oh,
there,
oh,
I took the main
I'm
categories.
looking at the wrong one. Never mind.
Okay. All I did was take the main categories. Okay?
No, no,
And I
no.
want you to know that not all departments are happy. What we did, and there was a tight time frame, but what I did is after I condensed everything down, I sent it back to everybody and said, if you got a big problem, call me. I had about 3 or 4 departments call me, and in some cases, they were right. I added things back in. In other cases, I said, no, I think you're putting it too specific. So
I like this.
I think it'll be a tool.
I think
anyway.
it's certainly a very, very good first step, you know, and, you know, I appreciate all the work, because one of the things that we've talked about for as long as I've been here is trying to identify the programs and services that we provide, how much those services cost, and how many people we're serving with them.
And for those of you who may be computer challenged, feel free to write it out in pencil, or come into the office and we'll help you do it. If anybody
I
feels
think he's
that
pointing
way.
to you, Dickie.
If anybody feels that way, we'll be glad to help you do it online. One other thing I have to mention, we did have a couple departments that did not participate, so.
We won't fund
noticed that. Circuit Court, I think Circuit
We
and,
won't fund them.
Circuit and Prosecutor did not turn anything in, and that may be all. I think everybody else did. I think everybody
Gary
else
has to
did.
defund them, is that what it is?
Could you have not put a line in there just for
Bob is
prosecutor
smiling
who
during
did
a
not-
meeting.
who did not want to participate?
We didn't do it, you know, I guess.
There's an asterisk at the end.
Dennis, I was just going to suggest that you give this to new commissioners when they come on, because this is a great map of what our county does.
It really is, you know, and this is like, you know, it's what we were talking about in budgeting for outcomes. It's getting departments to start thinking about what programs are. It's by no means perfect, but it's a start, you know, so.
You know, it's ironic about the public comments that we received tonight that the county doesn't do anything, you know, but.
Yeah.
Well, I still think one of our biggest challenges is educating the public about what we do.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
So will this be okay
You think we can put this
then?
on our computer, and we can do this on our computer? huh?
Yeah, you're gonna. You'll get it on the, we're
It's
either
an
gonna give it to
Excel
you with a
spreadsheet
survey,
right
or
now.
we're gonna send it to you in a PDF, and you can do it that way. Actually, through an Excel sheet, thank you.
I'll sit by my computer and wait.
Does this document work okay for you?
Did you plug it in
I
yet,
think
Dick?
it's fine.
Okay.
Hey, you know, I'd be willing to grab a portable computer and bring it out to you if you wanted. I mean, wouldn't be,
Let him jump at that.
it would just be an
Thanks,
excuse
John.
to go out and see your cool car, that's all.
Well, he would probably appreciate that, but know that we actually had him use a computer one time. He had never used a computer, and he kicked and complained the whole way, and in 5 minutes, he was doing it all himself, and he had to fill out a test, and he did it all.
So, I did it, don't have to do it anymore.
All right, well, thank you then.
Moving right along. Okay, we're okay
You don't
with
need a motion on
the
that, then
matrix?
you're okay.
We're okay with that?
Okay, I have to add one quick thing, okay? This just happened yesterday. We've been talking with the sheriff's office about police vehicles. This year, we already bought some police vehicles. We've been talking, I don't know if we told you, but they are no longer going to make the Crown Vics. Next year, we go to the smaller versions of 3 new vehicles. One is a Dodge, one is, it's a Dodge Charger, it's a Ford, and what's the third one?
Ford's Chevrolet.
And a Chevy. But what we found out yesterday, Nate contacted us and said, the state bid, Signature Auto, has 21 Crown Vics left, and they've been going back and forth trying to decide, what are we going to do? Or how are we going to try? Are we going to try 3 of each? Are we going to go to Expeditions? What are we going to do? So I just wanted you to know, very quickly, we are going to explore what options might be there to allow them to purchase Crown Vics, which would basically give us one more year with cars that we know work the way they like them, and let us get a year more under our belt to see how the other new vehicles work. So we're just trying to work out to see if there's a way we can finance them. Obviously, nothing's done without bringing it back to you, but I wanted you to know that the sheriff and I are working on that, along with Dean and Nate, so.
We're running currently 2 Chargers, Tom?
Oh, we have 2, yes. So just wanted to give you a heads up, but you may even see something as early as next week, some proposal for you to consider, okay?
Right.
Because we know that they won't last more than a month or 6 weeks, so.
Okay. Ross?
Speaking of sheriff's cars, have you done anything with my memo from a few weeks ago, or?
Yep, it's been sent to the sheriff, he's working on it.
Yep. We're putting all that together.
Commissioner asked for inventory of vehicles, mileage, maintenance records, and we're working on that.
Thank you.
A lot of cars with a lot of miles.
That's all we had then, Commissioner.
There's no other unfinished business that anyone knows of? We've already covered the new business. This brings us to the second opportunity for public comment. Is there anyone wishing to make public comment at this time?
Thank you for staying.
Seeing none, Commissioner committee reports? Chris?
You all have tickets on your desk for the Commission on Aging Senior Center luau over at the Senior Center on the 27th at 4 o'clock. I hope you all will attend, and I also want to inform the board that the Commission on Aging Board voted unanimously this week to discontinue funding for the Area Agency on Aging.
Ooh. Again?
How much was that?
It's
think it's like-
$60-some $100. I think they were asking for 75 or
Yeah,
something like that.
yeah, it's around,
7,500?
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, the primary reason the board voted to discontinue funding is they felt there was some duplication of services.
Anything else? Any notices or announcements?
Dennis, where are we at with the bidding process on the new health building? Is that?
Excuse me, we can't hear you.
I just asked Dennis if he could update us on the new health building.
Well, the bid specifications are being developed now.
Okay.
That's going to probably take a couple of months to finish those.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, I don't anticipate that we'll see any kind of bidding ready to go out until probably September timeframe.
Thank you.
Because they have to do the full design now, all the specs, all the engineering and design of the building, so it's going to take several months.
Okay. No purpose for a closed session?
No.
Motion for adjournment. All gone now.
Are you sure?
Thank you, everyone.